Carr himself plunged into the water for a swim. Gryskn stayed back on the shore for some time, but finally followed. He grew breathless with delight as the cool water stole soothingly around his body. He wanted it over his back too, so went farther out. Then he felt the water could hold him up and began to swim. He swam all around Carr, ducking and snorting, perfectly at home in the water. When they were on shore again, the dog asked if they had not better go home now. "It's a long time until morning," observed Gryskn, "so we can tramp around in the forest a little longer." They went again into the pine wood. Presently they came to an open glade illuminated by the moonlight, where grass and flowers shimmered beneath the dew. Some large animals were grazing on this forest meadow: an elk bull, several elk cows, and a number of elk calves. When Gryskn caught sight of them, he stopped short. He hardly glanced at the cows or the young ones, but stared at the old bull, which had broad antlers with many taglets and a high hump, and a long-haired fur piece hanging down from his throat. "What kind of animal is that?" asked Gryskn in wonderment. "He is called Antlercrown," said Carr, "and he is your kinsman. One of these days you, too, will have broad antlers like those, and just such a mane. If you were to remain in this forest, very likely you also would have a herd to lead." "If he is my kinsman, I must go closer and have a look at him," said Gryskn. "I've never dreamed that an animal could be so stately." Gryskn walked over to the elk, but almost immediately he came back to Carr, who had remained on the edge of the clearing. "You were not very well received, were you?" said Carr. "I told him that this was my first time I had run across any of my kinsmen, and I asked that I might walk with them on their meadow, but they drove me back, threatening me with their antlers." "You did right to retreat," said Carr. "A young elk bull with only a taglet crown must be careful about fighting with an old elk. Another would have disgraced his name in the forest by retreating without resistance, but such things needn't worry you who are going to move to a foreign land." Carr had barely finished speaking when Gryskn turned and walked down to the meadow. The old elk came towards him, and instantly they began to fight. Their antlers met and clashed, and Gryskn was driven backwards over the whole meadow. Apparently he did not know how to make use of his strength, but when he came to the edge of the forest, he planted his feet on the ground, pushed hard with his antlers, and began to force Antlercrown back. Gryskn fought quietly while Antlercrown puffed and snorted. The old elk, in his turn, was now being forced backwards over the meadow. Suddenly a loud crash was heard. A taglet in the old elk's antlers had snapped. He tore himself loose and dashed into the forest. Carr was still standing at the forest border when Gryskn came along. "Now you have seen what there is in the forest," said Carr. "Will you come home with me?" "Yes, it's about time," observed the elk. Both were silent on the way home. Carr sighed several times, as if he were disappointed about something, but Gryskn skepped along, his head in the air, and seemed delighted over the adventure. He walked ahead unhesitatingly until they came to the enclosure. There he paused. He looked into the narrow pen where he had lived up till now, saw the beaten ground, the stale fodder, the little trough where he had drunk water, and the dark shed in which he had slept. "The elk are one with the forest," he cried. Then he threw back his head so that his neck rested against his back and rushed wildly into the woods.